Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, hang out with these nerds.
Nate the Nerdarch.
Nerdarch is dead.
And today, join us as we craft a new magic item, perhaps even an artifact, the Well of Shadows.
Jump down in the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with us.
So, what are we doing today, fellas?
Well, we're still, riding the coattails of Halloween here, and we're going to open up the Mageforge, and we're going to create something spooky.
Gonna hammer something out.
So, what do we got in mind?
Well, it may be before or after this, but we have a fast and dirty monster inspired by a character I had way back in the day, and he had a special legendary item called the Well of Shadows, which was a cloak he wore. And I'd like to see what it does in 5th edition.
All right. Now,
what did it do in previous editions?
Well, it had the... so in past editions, it had the ability to store shadows. He was a Death Knight, and he kept his army of undead, which were all shadows, in the Well of Shadows, which was a cloak that he wore. So it allowed him to call forth shadows, and it also allowed him to have this cool fluff effect where when he moved, there was shadows overlaid on top of him. So when he moved, it was after images of his arm moving because it was all the different shades within him.
I just have this envision of kind of the arms dropping back with the cloak and holding it out, and just this funnel cloud just rushing out of shadows.
Yeah, that's probably how it looked when they called forth all of them.
So we have a number of options for how to get creatures. We can go into the player's handbook and look at all the different summoning spells that are out there. But it's a magic item. So if we go into our trusty DMG, we have an item that actually does summon creatures, and that's the Horn of Valhalla.
At various levels as well.
Exactly. So we have the option of saying, do we want to create this as a powerful, unique, legendary object? Do we want to have this be a small, lightly powered magical item that there could be loads of? Or do we want to have an array of options for creating said things, as the Horn of Valhalla does?
I kind of have an idea here. I think today we should create the original Well of Shadows. And sure, they may have created lesser ones afterwards, but this is the blueprint. This is the prototype. This is what they based it off of. This is what they've never been able to achieve again.
So we're
Except no imitations.
We're gonna create the legendary version thereof. It's a unique item, and there's nothing else like it before.
And right now, there's a Death Knight made of shadow magic, essentially walking around with it. So good luck getting it.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna have to pry it out of his cold, dead, shadowy hands.
So if we look at the Horn of Valhalla at its top most powerful option as a legendary item, it has the ability to summon 5 plus 5d4 berserkers, which are a challenge 2, and we're talking about summoning shadows.
And shadows are challenge half.
So do we look at multiplying this number, or do we say we can do it more often? Because this you can only use once every 7 days.
So I think the easiest thing to look at would be to look at, well, what can you do with a conjure spell? Because isn't the top of a conjure spell CR2?
Yes.
Which is the same as our berserker.
You usually get 4.
So essentially, you would just take that number for the berserkers and multiply by 4 if you wanted to do a direct correlation.
40 to 100 shadows.
For this legendary item, I'm down, man. I'm going to do it. Listen, if you're fighting someone that could have this, and in this case we're talking about the one guy that does have it, his CR starts at probably an 18 or a 19 easily.
Yes.
So you know what? Shadows are like nothing to you anyway. Any kind of mage could get rid of a quarter of them with one spell. That's capable of taking on this caster.
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
This monster. So it sounds like a lot and it sounds like overwhelming, but in my own games as a DM, I will often throw overwhelming odds because I know my players can dust most of it with ease. And speaking of dust, just imagine a cleric with his channel divinities. So it takes him 3 rounds, but all the shadows are now gone.
Yeah, there's a good chance you have a cleric and a mage working in tandem. You're going to just have disappearing segments, just circles of them just dead.
Mage goes, all right, I'll fireball those, you dust those. All right.
Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Now, the Horn of Valhalla, how many times was it a per week?
You can do it once every 7 days.
Okay. So we could lower the amount and say it's once a day, 10 to 25, or we could say, once a week, just up to 100. Boom.
All right. So the real crux of it is, if you're designing it as a PC item, having them being able to do it every day means
it's a lot different.
It's going to
you got to deal with it all the time.
I think once a week is fine, because from a story element, how often do you need a Horde of Shadows? And from the story element of we're looking at your guy using it, it doesn't matter. He can command undead anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not really a big deal if they stick around or whatever.
It's just like his overwhelming attack, basically, with this 100 shadows.
Yeah. So moving on from there is, well, this is a legendary item. Is that the only thing it does, or does it do other things?
Well, I obviously Nate wants it to have the ribbon ability of the shadow after image.
Oh, absolutely.
When you move. And it could be just that. It could be a ribbon ability.
Or
it could actually have a disorienting effect on players.
Well, it could literally just
blur.
be the same. Yeah. It could be the same of a Cloak of Displacement and cause the blur effect. And that's a standard thing. Now, I think we're done. We don't really need any more abilities on it. That's a pretty strong item.
More! Yeah, I do agree. Having a displacement cloak that also allows you to summon a whole bunch of shadows, that's pretty cool combination. I did want it to do one more thing. I wanted it to be kind of like a shadow prison.
Okay.
Where you could stuff shadows into it.
The shadows have to come somewhere. But again,
Yes.
this is probably a ribbon ability, because we discussed this a little bit off air. So the idea is that it's connected to the Shadowfell and a prison there where shadows are actually kept, and that's where he summons them forth. Now the other ability that you wanted to do is like, well, if you die from if it has the ability to suck them in.
Yes.
Suck in
and
shadows.
this will kind of combo with the ability that we talk about in Fast and Dirty Monsters, being able to create a shadow. So either through creation, undead magic, or the guy's actual special ability.
Well, you know what? Like, for the story purposes, it doesn't matter, because he could literally command them in to the prison once he's killed them and turned them to shadows.
This is true. That makes sense. So he can just kind of.
So really, there's like, okay, guys. So we're talking about two different things. One is making a monster, which we did in another video, and either we will link to that one. We will link one of these videos to the other one. Yes. So, but the thing, so the story-wise, Nate has a specific agenda that he's trying to get out, and I think by doing them both, you get that. You don't. They don't both have to be able to do it. Because if you're just trying to tell a specific story, and that is this shadow-infused Death Knight that creates shadows and imprisons them, well, his way of releasing them is the cloak, and he has that power, and it does the cool stuff.
Yeah. So the Valhalla, the Horn of Valhalla effect will be the releasing of the shadows.
Yes, and then adding the displacement effect or blur effect is going to be cool, and it gives it the after image thing. But it's also going to make him a difficult opponent, as well as because you're going to need something to see through that if you don't want to have disadvantage on your attacks.
Yeah, and it's already he's already got pretty pumpty armor class when it comes down to it, so disadvantage on attacks is nasty.
Yeah. So the question, guys, would you introduce an item like this into your game? We got a place for it. It's the comments. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can patronize us in a good way over on Patreon.
Or you can follow us on Instagram.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.